Evening, everybody. Nice to see so many people here. We were just saying it's lovely to have a full table. You're better than the last lot we had in here for a full table, so it all looks good. Just going to make a couple of changes. Item 6 will now become 5. That will give our guests, if they would like to leave after their spot, then you're quite welcome to do so. But if you'd like to stay and take in the workings of Tendring District Council, then you are more than welcome. So we'll start off then with item number 1, which is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we have apologies from Councillor Codling, who has given his long-term apologies at the moment, and from Councillor Ferguson, and I believe Councillor Guglielmi is substituting for her.
Yeah, welcome, Carla. Thank you. Can we just send our best thoughts to Councillor Codling?
We can record that, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Item 2 will be the minutes of the last meeting. Can I sign those and confirm and sign as a correct record? Give a show of hands. Everybody okay with that? Item 3 is declarations of interest. I'll remind everybody to declare an interest, disclosable pecuniary interest, as and when. Item 4.
Chairman, I don't want to labour that point, but I take it that no councillors on the committee have got any declarations of interest to make right now. Okay, and then it is as you say, Councillor, steady. If something does arise, then they should disclose that at the point in the meeting.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say, has anybody got a criminal record? But anyway, no, okay.
I dare not ask.
Okay, no. Item number 4. This is questions on notice regarding Council Procedure Rule 38. We have 2 questions. The first one being from Councillor Griffith. Chris, would you like to ask your question?
Can we clarify why it takes over a year to produce a health and wellbeing strategy? With a general election next year and the possibility of a change of government, is there not a possibility that any strategy considered by the Cabinet at the start of next year could have to be reviewed due to a change in political direction at national government level?
And I'll give the response, which is the Health and Wellbeing Strategy was considered for review in late 2022. To update the document requires a review of data for which the 2021 and 22 information has only recently been made available, and consideration of potential future priorities in alignment with partners. With an election in May 2023, it was inappropriate to wait the result of the election before proceeding, as the strategy highlights the Council's health and wellbeing priorities. The high-level priorities of the Council are currently being drafted, and there is the potential for the strategy to be included. Whilst determining priorities, consideration is given to the focus of our partners to ensure effective partnership, working and alignment. The Health and Wellbeing Strategy is now being aligned to the developing place planning work undertaken by the North East Essex Health and Wellbeing Alliance, which will see a greater focus on place within tendering. Alignment with partners' priorities to help deliver a system based upon approach which is soundly based on data is likely to remain a consistent approach even if there is political change. Linda.
Thank you, Chairman. At the meeting of the full Council held on the 11th of July 2023, the Cabinet Member for Partnerships informed the Council that the new Clacton CCTV cameras and work associated with the scheme regarding upgrades, etc., which is being funded by £317,000 of Essex Safer Streets funding, would be started soon in mid-July 2023. It was also said that the system would be fully operational by October 2023. As this system has not yet been in operation, could I please be informed as to why this has not yet occurred, and when is it expected to be completed and fully operational? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, and the response is: the portfolio holder for partnerships is delighted that the council was successful in its Essex Safer Streets bid. The work has indeed begun with the ordering of lighting upgrades for parts of the seafront gardens and the successful procurement of CCTV equipment for the work. Regrettably, since the update provided to the council in July, the officer team has identified some additional complexities around consents and procedures, including planning permissions, part including a conservation area matter, highway consents and the like, that need to be resolved in terms of the detailed locations of new poles and cameras. This is regrettable, of course, but the officer team have been widened to include the necessary specialism for further address the intricacies referred to. Due to the aforementioned complexities, the team has secured the extension of the funding period to March 2025 and is in the process of reviewing proposals in order to ensure that the relevant processes, procedures and consents are followed or put in place as applicable. The officer team is preparing a revised timeline for the works, which will begin with further lighting upgrades in the short term and necessary consultations and applications, with the camera installations to follow, beginning with equipment in current locations and new poles and equipment on them forming the final phase. I am sure that the fellow members may be disappointed that progress has been checked. However, I am confident that the officer team from the various necessary professional backgrounds will be working as hard as possible to get each tranche of the works completed as soon as they can probably be done, whilst ensuring that the enhanced system will be as effective as it can be and that benefit to the community is maximised. Furthermore, I have been informed by officers that Clacton will receive 10 years of funding and support totaling £20 million over the decade. This investment will focus on long-term strategic transformations as well as shorter-term improvements. The funding will be focused on high streets, heritage and regeneration, and public safety and security. So there is also the opportunity in Clacton for long-term support to improve public safety and reduce anti-social behaviour. Thank you. This is the work programming. Sorry, the Crime Commissioners and Revised Police and Crime Plan. I would like to invite Councillor Placey, Gina, the portfolio holder for partnerships, to say a few words.
Thank you. Good evening. As Chair of Tendering Community Safety Partnership, I am pleased to be able to welcome you to the first meeting of the Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee since its formal designation as the Statutory Crime and Disorder Committee. I would also like to thank the partners engaged in the Community Safety Partnership, both for their ongoing contribution and their attendance this evening. Members of the committee are reminded that the CSP is made up of a number of statutory partners, including Tendering District Council, whose responsibilities include working together in formulating and implementing strategies to tackle local crime and disorder in the area, and to address the partnership's identified priorities through a local CSP delivery plan. The partnership has three key priorities. The first, tackling antisocial behaviour and the root causes. This priority supports repeat and vulnerable victims of ASB. We are all aware that ASB affects families and communities, so by working together to address the root causes, we can help to improve the quality of life in the community. Secondly, preventing and reducing serious violence. This priority covers many areas, including domestic abuse, sexual offences, exploitation, gang-related violence, hate crime, modern-day slavery, human trafficking, and violent extremism, to name but a few. Our final priority speaks for itself as it relates to emerging threats and trends. The CSP works alongside the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex, who unfortunately cannot be here this evening. However, we will be hearing presentations from several Essex police officers in relation to how the partnership supports schemes to address domestic abuse and antisocial behaviour, as well as other crime types as identified within the PFCC's overall plan for Essex. The partners here this evening will be able to update us on general policing, crime and ASB statistics over the last 5 years, the number of officers in tendering, county lines and Cuckooing, as well as all partners being able to answer any other questions relating to the delivery of the CSP delivery plan, which I think Graham's going to have something to say there, which is annexed in your pack. You will see from the delivery plan there is a lot of fantastic work being carried out by all partners, including many charitable voluntary organisations such as Youth's Unity 121 mentoring programme. Colleagues also have on the committee agenda tonight an item considering the proposed themes of the emerging corporate plan. I hope that they can see how those help to support these objectives and TDC's role within the CSP, in particular the theme of working with partners to improve quality of life. As members will be aware, we received interesting and useful feedback as part of the consultation on the new corporate plan, and this is being considered further by officers for a wide range of applications, including our work within the CSP. Senior officers from the Tendering Council Community Safety Team are also in attendance tonight to answer any particular questions relating to the delivery plan or any other matters not covered in your pack of information. I look forward to working with the Crime and Disorder Committee to achieve the CSP's key objective of tackling local crime and disorder in the district. Thank you very much. I'll hand over now to Katie to go through the report.
Can I just clarify? Because time could be limited for questions, we've got quite a heavy agenda for tonight. So all the councillors have got a sheet in front of them to jot down any questions you may have. So what we will then do, we will then pass those on for written answers after the meeting. That will then give us a thread to be more focused on our work moving forward, and obviously it will save a bit of time tonight. Would you, Kate?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. As Councillor Placey mentioned, this is the first meeting of the Crime and Disorder Committee, and as such, it is appropriate that the committee considers the very broad nature of the work the Council and other responsible authorities for crime and disorder strategies in the district of tendering. By its nature, this will involve significant explanation from our partners around the respective roles of the Council and also responsible authorities, including how they will themselves have regard to the strategies and directions provided by the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, as well as the views of the public on the subject of crime and disorder. As part of its remit, the Crime and Disorder Committee are asked to consider whether it wishes to make any reports or recommendations to the local authority with respect to the decisions made or other action taken in connection with the discharge by the responsible authorities of their crime and disorder function. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that's quite a comprehensive report. Thank you for that, Katie. Now we'll move on to our guest speakers. So first, I'd like to invite Chief Inspector Ella Latham.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So in terms of the response I'm going to give, we're going to look at the 3 priorities within the CSP, and the first one that I'd like to discuss is that around the antisocial behaviour, one of our focuses within those priorities. So For Essex Police and working within the CSP as well, we have seen a continued reduction of ASB, which currently sits at 44% reduction now over the last 12 rolling months, which has been really positive for us as a police force. Some of the initiatives that we've conducted around that in relation to the antisocial behaviour is the Op Gingerbread, which I'm happy that Aaron will be able to give you a more formative update on that. But that's been around tackling ASB within the town centre, and that's within coordinated response patrols with our local ambassadors and with our targeted patrols. And they look at hotspot areas within the town centre, and we focus on initiatives such as the street drinkers, enforcing the PSPO that takes place, and our response to that over particular times when ASB is recorded at its highest. Aaron, I don't know if you want to give any more around the Op Gingerbread and what that looked like.
So Op Gingerbread was a joint operation we carried out with Tendring District Council, the ambassadors, and then we done a night of action towards the end of the summer holidays. So the initiative was, I looked at the peak times around ASB in the town centre over the summer period. So Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays between the hours of 12 and 10 p.m. So we put on an operation where there was a dedicated patrol in that area for that full time during that period. So but there were 6 weekends of the summer holiday, and every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you had a pair of police officers or police officers ambassadors. And I think on the night of action, there was all the partners were involved. I think fire as well come along to do the high visibility patrols. So in terms of what that looked like for our stats, let me just get my report up. I compared our statistics from the summer of 2022, so the period of the operation from the 1st of July to the 31st of August. So in 2022, we had 479 incidents of ASB reported. In the summer of 2023, that same period was 247. So we actually had a 48% reduction in ASB in the district for the summer of 2023 compared to 2022. In that time, there was 250 hours of dedicated foot patrols between us and the ambassadors, where we were targeting the ASB hotspots in the town and the violent hotspot areas. And during those 250 hours patrols, the PSPO powers were used 40 times to remove alcohol from the street drinkers and move them on. There was 5 arrests made in relation to drunken behaviour. We had 25 incidents of disorderly behaviour that we attended, and we had 10 intelligence reports in relation to drugs, which we actioned 1 warrant from. So in terms of the operation itself and the work we did with the partners, we had the 48% reduction, which we're happy to say is a success and met one of the priorities of the CSP.
Thank you. Just off the back of that as well, we also introduced Op Sunbeam, which was during our summer month, which also had support within the CSP in relation to that. So Operation Sunbeam was to look at the summer demand that hits as a result of the swell of numbers within tendering during the holiday season. And we encompassed a number of activities within the police in respect of that. So we ring-fenced officers within tendering so that they would not be deployed outside of tendering during this time to support other districts in other areas. And therefore we kept the cops in place with the knowledge and expertise where we needed it most. We also looked at bolstering this with dedicated foot patrols as well as the Op Gingerbread, and also with officers that worked overtime to support the local response in police function and high visibility in the area. As a result of this, as Aaron has touched upon, we saw a 48% reduction, a drop in the ASB that we saw over the same period compared to last year. We also conducted 199 stop searches compared to 177 in the previous year, which had a positive outcome, and 22 of those stop searches, which is about 11% increase with further positive outcomes in terms of what we dealt with in terms of that with crime. Domestic abuse, which we'll touch upon in a minute as well. Also, we saw a reduction in the amount of domestic abuse that was reported. In summer of last year, we had 854 crimes reported, and summer this year, we had 654 reported. As well as that, we also responded to, again, with the 250 hours of dedicated foot patrols, and they focused on also the nighttime economy of a Friday, Saturday and the weekends as well throughout July and August. It was a success, and it's something that we're going to look to roll out with future years to come now as well. So that's just a touch on the ASB element that we're looking at in respect of that, but Operation Sunbeam was there to support our response to serious crime as well, and any emerging threats or trends that may come up, which also form part of the CSP priorities there. So moving forward, talking around preventing and reducing serious crime, again, one of the priorities within the CSP, and unfortunately can't be here tonight, but Gary Biddle, the Detective Superintendent for the Gangs and County Lines team within Essex, just provided an overview that, again, as part of this, we have within Essex a dedicated team under OpRaptor, and this team will respond to any serious violence which is targeted through gangs and county lines. They're strategically placed all amongst the county, but we have our hub that is located over in Colchester, and a dedicated team there will therefore respond to any instance within Colchester and Tendring as we know it. The Raptor teams, along with that dedicated function, also support with an intelligent function, and they will look at any associated exploitation of vulnerable adults and children within the community as well. So far, the North team this year have made 212 arrests of county line nominals, and within Tendring, 21 of those arrests have been associated with county lines, which reflects the fact that we do not have a large issue here with county lines or significant issues within Tendring that are a worry for us, which is always really reassuring to understand and know. Within that as well, we have a number of referral agencies that work closely with us under the Serious Violence Unit, and they will respond and also offer support through what we call a prevent and prepare team. And we will look at safeguarding any individuals involved in county lines where we can support them to move out of that line and give them a better chance for the future. The work conducted within there supports the government's 10-year drug strategy from harm to hope, and it's been identified that we've had some real significant and positive outcomes from this, from the arrests that have been made, and how we tackle this moving forward. Also, part of the serious violence is the area that is often very key to us within Tendring, and that's the support and prevention that we provide around domestic abuse. So I'm just going to hand you over to Acting Detective Inspector Wendy Byrne, and she'll give an update around domestic abuse for Tendring.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Ma'am. I am a specialist in the field of domestic abuse, and I work here in Tendring on the domestic abuse investigation team, where I've been for the last 5 years. I looked at the figures recently and we're very pleased to say that they are on the down and the detection rate is on the up. So, to explain what DATE are, which is what we do, we deal with medium and high risk DA. So that is somebody at risk of serious harm where they're likely to be either very seriously injured or have an event occur on them that will be very, very difficult to recover from. You then have standard risk, which is where we deem that yes, there is a risk, however, there isn't likely to be a major occurrence that will then end up in a risk of serious harm. So DATE look at medium and high risk. In the last year, we've seen a reduction in crime relating to medium and high risk DA of 16.3%. In relation to standard risk, we've seen a reduction in crime of 21.1%. When you consider that Essex Police, 22% of calls to service are DA related. Every call we take, 22% of them is DA. That's a massive number of calls every day. So to have that reduction is really, really good, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we've got there and how that fits in with the plan going forward. So, We have some specialist teams that assist us in date, one of them being the domestic abuse problem solving team. They will literally work with victims and offenders to stop the pattern of behaviour from continuing. So they will target offenders that are known to continue from partner to partner being DA perpetrators, and they will help victims from breaking that cycle of abuse. They also enforce our orders that we get. If we can't necessarily charge somebody with a criminal matter, what we can do is go for something called a domestic violence protection notice, which gives us 28 days with an order which is given by the court and is a criminal offence to breach. They will police that order. So they will make sure that order is being adhered to, they will touch base with the victim, and they will make sure that the suspect is doing exactly as they are told. If not, they will bring them before the next available court. So there's no running away from that order. They do a massive amount of work around people that are continuing to get into that cycle of DA, in particular perpetrators. So they've learnt the techniques of breaking that cycle, getting people onto anger management programs, dealing with them, being in touch with these people to try and understand what it is that makes people become domestic abusers and what people who are abused do to try and break that cycle. Moving on from that, we work very closely to Next Chapter. Next Chapter are an independent, they supply IDVAs, so they're independent domestic violence advisors. They are absolutely amazing. What they do is brilliant, and they work very closely with us to help victims through the court process, keep them into somewhere safe, and move on with their life. You know, we deal with anything from attempt murder down to a common assault, so you can imagine how much that would impact. That, of course, has a knock-on effect to the general public because domestic abuse is a plague and needs to be stamped on. So that's where they come in to help these people break that cycle. We also realise that, you know, we're police officers. Yes, we're human beings, but we are police officers, and it's really important that people have people to talk to. So they introduce citizens in policing, and what comes with that is normal members of the public talking to normal members of the public about what they've gone through and to help get them through the court process, which can be daunting for us, let alone victims of crime. So we work very closely with them. More recently, we've had 2 operations running, one of which has been Op Advance, which is targeting outstanding suspects, so people that have gone to ground, know that they're wanted by the police, trying to hide from us, and we will target them people using the facilities and things that we have at our disposal, which unfortunately I can't tell you because I don't want to let my secrets out. But that has targeted people that have been outstanding for a little while and that pose a significant risk. On top of that is Op Nightshade, which is a group under OPC that will go out and arrest our most dangerous offenders and bring them into custody so that we can deal with them and hopefully put them before the next available court the next morning. All in all, I'd hope that you all have realised I'm quite passionate about what I do, and I like to make sure that people are safe and that victims get the voice that they so deserve. But all in all, we have seen quite a big reduction. We've also managed to detect a lot more crime this year, which is amazing because DA is a silent crime. People don't like to talk about it, and they certainly don't want to come and sit in front of a police officer and tell them about what a terrible life they've had. So that's all from me, and I hope that that answers a few questions. Thank you.
Thanks. That's fantastic. It's a real good information. Sorry, yeah. Ella, have you finished, or did you want to do a...
Yeah, the only thing, if you'd like to know, is I was just going to touch on the establishment numbers that we have within Clacton Police Station, Harwich at the moment, but I can either go on that now if people just like to know. There's not a huge difference in terms of the numbers, but if everybody would like to know, It will just give some detail around the numbers of officers that we have parading, if you're happy with that. So I looked at the figures from 2020 to 2023. So currently we have two sets of teams. We have our community policing team and our local policing teams, and they're our response officers that go out to the calls that are coming in, the 999s as such. The response local teams, so they're split between Clacton and Harwich. We've got 5 inspectors, we have 11 sergeants, and we have 90 constables, and that's an increase of 10 constables over the last 3 years. Within the community policing team, we have 1 inspector, we have 4 sergeants and 14 constables. And within that area as well, within community policing, we have 4 children's and young persons officers that will go out and do the educational talks within schools, support young people to prevent further crimes taking place. Also within that settlement as well, we have our community safety engagement officers. So these are officers that will promote the work that we're doing, send out educational pieces through social media platforms or through the new sort of dispatch methods that we've got. And we also have 14 police community support officers, 6 of which are funded across the district as well. So that's in terms of the establishment figures. It's been relatively comfortable across the board on where we're sitting, and we seek to make further improvements as we go. But a lot of those officers don't tend to leave the area so much. They like to be here, they like to police the area. So we've got a good wealth of knowledge and expertise as well that sits within that.
Thank you. That's really good. I'm going to change my mind on what I said earlier on. Any of the members of the committee would like to ask a question? I know we said we were going to do it, but I just think there's a lot of information there, and if there's anything in your mind now, would you like to ask her? So, Caroline.
For Wendy, actually. Just with the data that you have given us, how can you assure us that that data is not a reduction in people reporting crime, but is a reduction in actual crime being reduced?
Oh, that's quite a difficult one to answer, but I've worked on the team for 5 years, and during the course of that, we have systematically gone for perpetrators that repeat against victims, and I'm pleased to say that I know personally of quite a number of them that are doing quite lengthy custodial sentences. So we try to get in with the victims and get them to understand the warning signs for going into life after domestic abuse. So that's where Next Chapter come in and are very good at what they do. The problem with DA is that usually somebody will be a victim of DA 40 times before they will call the police. However, once they've made that call and they know that they've actually got somebody at the end of the phone that they can talk to, and they've got the team at Clacton, because that's where I am, that answer the phone to them and give them 20 minutes of their day, come on, we've got this, we can do this, then they're happy to pick the phone up again as and when they need to. They know that we're there for them. So I do believe that that reduction in crime is actually a reduction in crime rather than people not reporting, because actually once they've reported, reporting again afterwards becomes easier because they know that there's somebody there for them that believes them, is the main thing, that takes them seriously on what they're saying and actually puts that into action and does something with it. So, you know, we get the perpetrators into custody, and if we can remand and keep them in custody and before the next available court, then that is exactly what we do. And that is the safest and best way to keep somebody safe from further offences. So, yeah, hopefully that's answered your question.
That's a brilliant response. So you're using tacit data, data from experience to underpin the data, the actual quantitative data.
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you,
You're
Wendy.
welcome.
Cheers.
Yes. Thank you very much. Got a couple of questions. One is on the presentation is centred on Clacton, the activities up in there. Obviously, tendering is not just Clacton. There's quite a lot of rural areas, as you, Alice, very aware of, and really welcome a lot of the new schemes you've introduced where we are. The one area that's not always goes below the radar of people is safety on, we have a very big farmers community. We are, and see Adam's here from the NFU this evening. The main concern is the intrusion that happens on their lands and the apparent inability to deal with them because it's very difficult, you know. The issues go from safety of people walking through the lands because you have some big machineries there and, you know, they might not get seen by these big tractors. It gives them a way in to people's properties and things, and it's always something that's very hard to deal with. I'd just like to get your understanding on that and what your views are and how to tackle that. I've got another couple of questions, if you take that one first.
Yeah, so farming for me is quite close to my heart. It's within my...
Also.
It sits quite closely within my own personal community as well, and I see the troubles that we have in the engagement sometimes. So for Essex, we've got the rural engagement team that we work quite closely with, and it was only very recently, it was discussed at a previous meeting, that there were some concerns around people accessing land, taking the sat-nav equipment from the tractors and things like that. So we keep abreast of the information that's coming in. I do feel as times that there is some underreporting that we don't always hear about, and that's what I'm key to work on and look at that engagement piece in respect of that. So, and there's a number of things that we're looking at and discussing this with, most recently with the rural engagement team. They're looking at potential WhatsApp groups to create those methods of communication that police officers can be a part of and just be alert to, almost a bit like a neighbourhood watch scheme where, with the farm watch scheme, where we just alert people. So if there are people coming into the land, accessing lands, there's suspicious circumstances, because I know with open farmland, you'll get theft, you'll get a lot of people encroaching on land because they don't understand where they can and can't walk within that land as well. So I think signage is really key, but also alerting others and alerting us as police and within those engagement teams so we can go out and respond as quickly as possible. We've also got the horse watch scheme as well now up and running, and we've got spots within the community policing team that will go out and build those links with horse watch people that are out there in the riding community, again to establish that communication and that engagement, which is key, because that's the only way. If we all start talking and having those conversations, we'll build up a bigger picture, because what happens at one farm ultimately is going to at some point happen at another farm. So it's really key that we have that communication, those links between the farms and the police going.
I've got another couple of just to come back on this particular one. You've not talked about your toolbox that you keep it secret, you know. Do you use drones at all in your operations?
Yes, so drones is something that we've recently used and something that I'm keen to use more around looking at the support within the rural community. The rural engagement team, I believe, do have a drone as well, and that is put to use in terms with any encroachment on property, for hare coursing as well, as that's another, and it's hard for us to catch these hare coursers because they're quick, they know the routes. So drones are being used. Fortunately, I have a good contact within the drones unit who I will be using frequently to look at different measures in which we can use drones within tendering, and with the potential maybe of having some people trained to use drones within the district here so that we can go out and respond quicker with them.
I've got another couple, if I can. No? Okay. That's fine.
On a minute. I've already seen today, thank you. I'm just looking at the percentages on ASBOs. 44% down. Brilliant. 2023, 479, and in 2022, sorry, and in 2023, 247. What do you put that down to?
I think you can put it down to a number of things. I think particularly over the summer, I think the weather has a big part to play with it as well. We've not seen the heightened in heat as we probably expected over the summer period, so we have seen a reduction in the number of calls. I think also, I think it depends on what's going on in the community, so what agencies we have to support and engage with the youth, and it's got better. I know personally for yourself within the youth centre as well, that key engagement to get into youth early, the education that we put into the schools now with police officers, supporting them, educating them on the fear of crime that can be produced by just merely by their perception of being there. So, and we've done a lot of activity with our planned operations with the high visibility patrols, which I feel have been a contributory factor towards that as well. So key engagement, I think, is key there, and creating opportunities for the youth, which is improving. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. And I think that's often bridged that gap and prevented a lot of the ASB in the area.
Sorry, just to add to that, we also use data now to target areas that we know had issues of ASB in the past. So I'm sure Frinton, Walton, the last few years around Halloween, fireworks night, some real issues. So we used some funding from the council to then put patrols in that area. And I think this year we've seen a massive reduction compared to other years. We didn't have the same reports because we're well prepared now. We know where our issues are. We use the data we get, and then we plan the operations around that to reduce the ASB. And I just want to mention Op Stronghold, which we had in October, half term, which was a district-wide, not just Clacton, it was the whole district working with the partners from the Community Safety Partnership, looking at all different areas of policing and visibility. So we were tackling violent crime, domestic abuse, ASB, vulnerability. We are now going to roll that out 4 times a year, and it will be a district-wide week of action from all areas of policing with partners. And during those weeks, there we get some really good reductions and good results. So we're targeting them in the holidays as best we can as well now, because we notice, obviously, from the data trends that you get an increase of ASB and violent crime in the summer holidays, in the Christmas holidays, in the Easter holidays. So having operations like Stronghold have really helped us focus and then reduce this.
Thanks for that update. Councillor Davison, Bill. No, he's answered it, has he? Okay. Terry.
Yeah, thank you for the report. It's really useful, really encouraging. Mine's a terminology question. Forgive me, I'm a teacher. Is it a deliberate policy by Essex Police to call police officers cops? It was Mr. Hurst referenced it as well quite a lot. It's police officers cops.
Yeah, it is a term that we just use, a bit of slang term really in terms of that. But yeah, cops, constables, that is just the terminology that we tend to use there.
Carlo, did you want to come back in on another one? We just got 5 minutes in the session.
Yeah, I've got a question on county lines, actually. County lines.
What I was going to suggest, we're trying to arrange a visit to the station in Clacton. I was wondering whether we could incorporate the gangs and the county lines with the 2 officers who are not here tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to come along and
so
present.
Would that be okay? Yeah. Last chance, forever hold your peace. Okay.
Good evening. So I just report on the reduction in number of deliberate fires within the Tendron area over recent years, where we've been working with our community partners to prevent fires, educate our youth and fire cadets in training programs, and also we've got our community partners working in schools to assist with education with the younger generation. What we tend to do now is where we do have incidents in towns and villages, we do a tactical after incident response where we talk to members of the community, offer free smoke alarms, which is still available. If you visit our intranet site, there is links on there where anyone can apply for a home fire safety visit. We also target areas, so where we see a large number of calls, we will target those areas as a part of our reduction plan. We not only reduce fires, but we're also looking at RTC reduction, and we have our motorcycle teams go out, engage with motorcyclists in the community as part of our reduction program as well.
Thanks for that. Any questions for Quentin on that? Councillor Williams, Linda.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just picked up on the last piece that you said there. You mentioned motorbikes. Yeah. Do you contact the huge gatherings that there are in Great Bentley? That's all right. I just want to make sure that that's... yeah. Sorry, it's a bit personal to me. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Quentin.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. I'm Adam Scott. I work for the National Farmers Union, also farm the other side of Colchester. And NFU is a trade association representing farmers. We've got about 920 members in Essex. And when I started working with them, I thought I'd be talking about growing crops and yields and those sort of things. But actually what a lot of the time we're talking about with farmers is rural crime. And it's one of these sort of hidden things that you think happens over there and nobody quite knows. But Essex is 71% rural, and 14% of crime is rural crime, which is 23,000 crimes happening either in rural villages or on rural businesses and farms. So there's a lot more happening out there than people imagine. The focus tends to be on the high street, but it's, you know, there's a lot going on farms, and we suffer. We also, it's 19% domestic abuse in those rural crime figures. So there's that hidden harm still happening in rural areas, but obviously the farming world focuses. I think we've got four big areas that affect farms. One is theft of machinery and plants. So tractors, often they'll be spirited away through the ports of Harwich and Felixstowe before people know they've gone. Telehandlers, they're the machines that we use to lift boxes and bales and do the heavy lifting. They often get stolen. If people think they want to lift an ATM machine out of the side of a co-op, they'll go disappearing and then they'll be found near the scene of that sort of crime. So there's knock-on links to that. And the one we did just mention earlier was the theft of GPS equipment, which is the systems mainly on the roofs of tractors, so they're easy for crooks to get at. They're about 15 or 20,000 pounds each, and they go to the continent. A lot of it used to go to Eastern Europe. There's a thought now that they might be dismantling them and using some of the technology in them for rockets and stuff in the Ukraine area, and recycling that way. So theft of those machinery bits obviously affect people. You can't get on with the work, you can't do what you need to in a timely manner, as well as the damage and to the machines and the cost on the insurance. So machinery theft's a big one. A lot of that's organised crime. We don't think it's, you know, it's not happening by accident. Some of the smaller thefts that occur are opportunistic, and again, that might be somebody heading back across the water, stopping off, taking a few spare parts that might be worth £2,000 or £3,000, but taking them out of the country as they leave. So machinery theft's important. Hare coursing we've also mentioned. Some people think, well, that's just dogs chasing rabbits, but there's a whole lot more to it. It's lurchers chasing hares, and that's the sport, but linked to it is a huge amount of gambling and some serious, 10,000 quid, 100,000 quid bets. Serious money's betted on this. It's often streamed from the field live to pubs or wherever people are betting the big money. So it's pretty organised activity. A lot of the money is obviously dubious money. While that's happening, they're also looking out and casing the joint, and then there's intimidation going on as well. So it's not just dogs chasing rabbits. That's why farmers are so upset by hare coursing. It's all the knock-on things that go with it. So that's an important one. I think the activity from Essex Police working with a number of other forces under Operation Galileo has seen a marked decline in hare coursing, which is excellent. It's pushing them out of Essex, which is great. Not so good if you live in Lincolnshire, because that's where they tend to have gone. But that's good news for Essex. Another thing that is, again, has improved over the last 3 or 4 years, illegal encampments, where travellers turn up and just make camp on your land for a week or 10 days, and then you're left clearing up the mess. Obviously happens in urban areas, but a lot of the rural areas have suffered. But again, a more consistent approach in how that's tackled by the police, and some recent changes to the law last year have improved that situation. And I think Jane Gardner in particular, the Deputy PFCC, has done a lot of work to ensure there's a consistent approach across Essex, and that consistency is very important in getting the message out there that actually Essex is going to be a tricky place to stop if you want to just set up an illegal encampment. So that's improving. The fourth one that bugs landowners and farmers is fly tipping. Some of the industrial scale waste is organised crime. Again, that tends to be closer to the M25, with waste coming out of London in 25-tonne lorry loads. I think more of the issues on this side of the county are just domestic waste, and I think the issue there is members of the public need to make sure anyone who's taking their waste is a licensed waste carrier, and they get a ticket, because I think the tendency just to say, well, here's 20 quid, take my fridges away, they're the things that end up in the farmer's field. So they're some of the crimes we get. There's other fly grazing, where people leave horses on your land and you're then responsible for looking after them while they munch away at your crops. That happens. Wildlife crime's another one. And the other thing I know as farmers we need to do more on is road safety. We know you'll sometimes see farmers driving too fast and perhaps on their phone and that sort of thing, and we're conscious of that, and we definitely try and spread the message to farmers that our machinery is big, some of it is pretty quick, and they need to be roadworthy and make sure they're not putting mud on the roads, and if they are, they're clearing up after it. So road safety is something we take seriously, but I know in some areas will be an issue. Prevention, I think there's a lot of good work has gone on in the last few years, changing the law, which has helped with hare coursing and illegal encampments. That's been good. I think the close working with the PFCC's office and the rural engagement team that we mentioned earlier, that's been excellent. There are 12 officers in that rural team. It's great that they work with the other offices because they've got the expertise and that can help spread. So anything that can improve those communications is really useful. I think farmers need to do more on reporting, because often they think, what's the point? But they'll think, what's the point? Less often if they get a good response from the local policing team. So the better they can dovetail with the rural team to understand it is key. Obviously, at a farm level, there's a lot of activity going on with gates, CCTV, digging trenches and barricading themselves in, but we don't want to do that. We live in rural areas, and you don't want to feel like you're under siege. So it's finding that right balance. But I think reporting is something that's key, and building trust with the officers in the area so they understand each other and understand what the issues are. So that's really what's affecting farmers at the moment, is this bigger picture that rural crime does exist, and it is an issue for farmers. And I think, and it's not just farmers, it's the rural communities and their families and staff and everyone who lives there, because it's, you know, you're living in remote areas, and that's vulnerability is something that, you know, if you're alone in a field and there are hare coursers, you suddenly feel it, and that's the sort of issue. So I think relationships with Essex Police have definitely improved over the last 5 or 6 years, but there's still Herberts out there that we need to make sure we don't make their life any easier. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. That was really insightful, actually, because that was the thing which you know when you were talking, there definitely seems to be the coordination between the police and yourself. So have we got that right? Then that is, you know, you seem to be working together.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think the rural team has been great, but Roger Hurst again has been very supportive, and it's in the strategy. There's a chapter on rural crime, and that's key that it's there, because, you know, we are a big part of Essex and obviously a big part of Tendring as well. So as a rural community, that's important.
Yeah, because I think as a committee, then maybe, you know, we should take all these points, these plus points in, and then do a bit of focused work. Or say if we can come into the station and we can catch up with the county lines and the gangs, then even have some sort of link up with the farmers. You know, we can come in somewhere and sort of, you know, get a bit more insight into what goes on, really. Because what we're trying to do is to get off-site visits. You know, to get where the action is really at the coalface. So that's something which I'm sure we will be working on in the future. Any questions?
Just a very, very brief question, and it's around hare coursing, because having spent quite a lot of time in Ireland, it's an activity that goes on, it's prolific there, and I wasn't quite under the impression that it was the same here. So I'm a bit shocked, to be fair. Are there any particular groups that you are aware that partake in that activity, and is there anything that we can do to get rid of it?
Yeah. No, there are. I mean, it's, you know, it's just, you know, there's a group, you know, it's their sport, it's what they do on a Sunday, they're organised with it, they almost have competitions, they do have competitions, and they have cups. There's a lot of value attached to the dogs, but there's even more value on the betting that goes with it. So they are those organised criminal gangs to a degree, and there's unquestionably, you know, the travellers are involved with it.
Yeah, just in relation to that, I can confirm a lot of those groups, they're very closely linked to the rural engagement team. We know who they are. And for instance, I cover duty officers sometimes, where I cover the whole of the county. So I wouldn't say we get a lot of hare coursing around here, but in other areas such around Saffron Walden, they've been subjected to a lot of hare coursing. And there was one such occasion where I was covering that part of the county at the weekend, and we had information to suggest that there was going to be a hare coursing event take place. Straight away, the rural engagement team are down there. They are speaking with those individuals to highlight to them that we know that this hare coursing is going on. And we can also look with, in terms of the nuisance and the disruption and the harassment that it causes to local farmers, we can look at putting in individual dispersal orders for that area to disperse any groups that we believe may be involved in hare coursing into that area straight away before that event even takes place. So we've got a lot more preventative action now in terms of disrupting that event as soon as we get that intelligence come through, which is why that reporting is so key. If there's anything to suggest that there is any hare coursing events going on, the quicker we know about it, the quicker we can put a stop to it.
And is there a mechanism by which that we highlight that to the public so that they can report it to you? Because I've not seen anything anywhere that mentions, you know, if you're aware of anything happening around hair coursing, how you can report it. And, you know, hands up, I don't live in a rural area, but is there some way, because it's an absolutely...
So normally it will be the farms that will normally be cited on it. They'll get information to suggest that an event may be coming their way. It may be from a community resident that lives in the area. Generally, that farming community will be linked with the rural engagement team. That contact will be made. We won't always advertise that we know events going on. We try and get to the event organiser early doors before we then advertise, so much so that a dispersal order may be put in place. But normally it will be through the normal reporting channels that we ask for that information to come through, and then we'll have analysts that will work on that information. They'll do a search through social media, they'll scan, it's called a COSAIN report, where we will scan all of our social media channels and reach out to our communities to identify any more intelligence coming through.
Okay. Just to say, we have got a couple of questions for pilfering. You know, I know you gave a very good speech at the public meeting. This is from Councillor Nick Turner, so we'll pass that on to you. Maybe you can give us a bit more information, and certainly on the fire brigade side as well. He's put a question on that, but again, we will pass those on to you, and if you could come back with a reply, that would be really helpful. So thanks. Dave, Tendering Neighbourhood Watch.
Hi. Tendering Neighbourhood Watch is made up of 90 individual street watches. That's across all the tendering. We have approximately 1,500 members. I say approximately because we're at the moment conducting an audit as to how many members we do have. The problem is that the street watch coordinators hold all the details of their street watch members, and they're held under GDPR, so we do not know who they are. All we know is how many people that they have. Unfortunately, while carrying out the audit, it's been a job to get them to reply. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. The aim of Tendering Neighbourhood Watch is to try and keep our community safe. We encourage all our members to report crime. We also pass down all the information that we receive from the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, the crime reports from Essex Police, and the CVSTE bulletins, and we send these out on a weekly basis. We've actually started to do analysis for the crime reports, and it's quite enlightening, really. But we do try and support Essex Police. We are affiliated to Essex County Neighbourhood Watch Association, who are a registered charity. I don't know what else I can say about it, really. So if anyone's got any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that. I know I came along to the AGM with Keith and one of the things which probably stood out was that obviously you do struggle to get new people on board and all that. So I'm just dobbing Alan there. At the public meeting, it was said that you have got a budget for neighbourhood watch schemes, and I didn't know whether you could give more information to Dave.
I probably wouldn't have the details on that. That would be through the PFCC in terms of that budget itself.
If we go through them, then they might give us a bit more.
Yeah, they'll be able to give you that information.
Yeah, okay. So
apologies.
that's what we'll get, Dave. We'll get some information, and then we'll pass it over to you.
Well, we actually get funding from the PFCC, and this year it was £975, which By the time you've paid out for stickers, leaflets, venues to hold the meetings, that does start to run out.
Mr. Chairman. Dave, could we just clarify that when you're dealing with your street wardens, if you're not actually sure who they are through data protection, how do you know if the information you're passing there is being cascaded down the organisation?
We're relying on the coordinators to do that. Although we have had a couple of reports where people have told us the coordinators are not passing on the information. We've written to all the coordinators telling them that they must pass on the information that we send them. I think a lot of them may actually look at the information and filter it, so as it only applies to the street or the area that they're living in.
You've got different messages going out in different areas.
No, we send out all the information we get to the coordinators. It's up to the coordinator then to send the information to their members. But we suspect that they are filtering the information. So, but as long as they send the main bits, which are the crime reports and the PFCC newsletters, the CVSTE bulletin, it's, you know.
Any other questions? So I'd just like to say thank you very much, all our guests. It's been really, really good. And no doubt we will come across, we will invite you to other meetings. And so hopefully what we can do, we can then focus on specific items as they come up. So again, thank you very much for attending. And you're free to go.
Thank you. Cheers.
Have a comfort break. Okay, just to reinforce, where we are on this. There's a lot of information tonight, I thought, which is some really, so it might take us a bit of time to get into it, and I think there's definitely some pieces of work there we could do focus on. For instance, we've got um, the visit to the police station, and then we'll liaise with the crime, the gangs, and also the county lines as well. And then Wendy Byrne has just said that she would be okay to go into domestic abuse and to sort of talk us through that in the police station as well. So there's quite a lot to go through, and I think maybe we'll have to try and go over the recording and get all the bits of information to see how best we can focus in on things. Chris?
I mean, we've had some very, very good presentations from the police, the fire brigade, the farmers union. And there's been excellent sort of information sharing. But from a district council point of view, how are we actually influencing this? Because most of this is at a higher level and decisions are made outside of tendering district council. For example, the police, fire brigade, National Firemen's Union, and most of this sort of stuff, although it's excellent work, is not happening in tendering. So although this is very, very good for things like fact finding, how are we looking to actually influence what they're doing? I mean, is it a partnership role? What's their actual objective on this? I mean, I do accept it's all very good and we've seen some very good presentations, but how are we looking to actually influence what's going on or take part in some of this?
I think in some respects we're playing catch up because this is the first time it's come under crime disorders come under a committee. It's been on a ad hoc basis, and I think they probably report about once a year, twice a year. So now is the opportunity for us to actually look into the information what was given tonight and say what bits can we affect, and then we can highlight and we can focus in on those. Jean, I didn't know whether you want to come in on that. And
I'm still learning. We should have kept the officers. But the community safety partnership is part and parcel of that. I mean, and that feeds in with the summer plan. So they're as far as I'm aware, that is part of they get together and collaborate on stuff. I don't know the detail, Chris. Maybe it's a question that we could put to Leanne and Jenny and get a bit more information. But part of this report is for you to consider anything that you want to put forward. Linda might know a little bit more.
Mr. Chairman, that what we actually look at doing is on this actually putting in some terms of reference so that as a committee we're focused in on certain areas that we can affect, because things like county lines are very, very interesting and domestic abuse is very interesting. But a lot of this is made at a higher level and we really want to be focusing on things that we can influence. Although I do accept it's from an education point of view, it's a worthwhile experience, but we really do need as a committee to have some sort of terms of reference so there's a consistency on what we're looking at, and also that allows us to see any progress if we've got a set terms and conditions.
Carrie, did you want to? Sorry.
Back on that point, I do think, I'm totally with you when you say what can we influence, but actually we can't influence things unless we know that they're going on. We need the knowledge to know what are the issues within our locality, and even those issues that we don't have a direct role in saying yay or nay to, we still have a voice, and we are there as an elected voice to be able to, I mean, I know if I went to people in my locality and said that this and this was happening, they would have a voice about that. And as such, we need to say that. And I'm not saying we don't need a plan, because we 100% do need a plan of issues that we're going to be looking at over the period of time that we're in office. But I think things like county lines and that, although we say we can't have a direct impact, we can have an impact on that. because it should always be within our, within our horizon.
I think part of this process today as well, it's a statutory requirement that there's an annual report of all the statistics that you've just been given. But that doesn't detract from the fact that the police are there if you want to access them for any information on anything like that. And we had one recently, Chris, didn't we, with the Clacton councillors were invited to meet the police. And I get what you're saying as well, but I think the big message is that we've got to get people reporting what's going on.
Although it looks like things are coming down, we don't know if that's real, because it depends on people actually reporting those issues.
Yeah. Can I just come in on that? I actually met up with the police today. They came down to Walton. I met up with Ellie today and her group. She focused on my youth club that we'd set up, and yes, it's important that we're all working together. To me, that's the main thing. We're all working. At long last, I feel that the police are coming down to our level, and it's important, obviously, that it's something that we should be working on. Yes, we need a plan, but we need to, as I said, a lot of stuff has come out tonight that we can now take away, sort out a plan, and go from there. That is so important.
Yeah, as councillors, we can make a difference.
Yeah, totally agree.
By working
Yeah.
with the police.
Sorry, yeah, keep doing.
Yeah, just saying that I think by listening to what I said tonight, very interesting, and I think all of us somewhere or other have brushed with seeing drug deals going down. You may not in your area, but I certainly have. So I think by getting the information, we gather it up. I think we can work. I think we, as councillors, I think we've got a duty to work with the police and eradicate this evil drug.
I think pleasantly surprised, really. Although I've been to 2 meetings and they do come across as quite positive, and I think maybe we do need to focus in because there might be a different train of thought. But I think at this level, I think it's more of a good conversation.
It's engagement, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
the fact that we've got the right people round the table to engage with, which then actually supports us to move forward.
I'll take your point. Your point, but I think as Anna said, we can actually give our residents a voice as such, can't we? We can say, look, this is the way we're going, and as long as we try and get the message out there, then I think that's Linda.
Can I just say, after having worked for so many years with them and what have you, it's a massive area. If you look into it deeply enough, it's a massive area. I mean, my son's involved in so many other areas because he's a copper, as most people know. But the point being is, what we want is something that is related specifically for us here in tendering, and they're looking at a wider scope than what we've got here. So perhaps we need to get together and decide on what it is that we want to see, just put it together that way. I know that there's been touched on in various areas, recently, and I am sorry about this voice. But it's just something, can we just plan out something that's really relevant, not just to the towns, look at the rural areas as well, because there's a lot what was being said about the hare coursing and what have you. And that has changed massively. I mean, in the last, 3 months, we've been told 999 now. You don't do the usual 101. It's 999, and they do it as a priority to come out. So there's those sort of areas that has had influence on through the rurals as well. But it's very interesting to just listen to what they're saying, but how is it going to benefit and how can we make it work for us in tendering? That's the only way I was looking at it.
You've all got the forms, and we were going to do that for like questions. So can we use that as a feedback into Keith and Keith as well? So if there's anything, that's what we need to do, don't we? We need to focus in on things, what we can then affect. But I think, we could use this as a double-edged sword, really. Either questions you want put to our guests, or suggestions on how we're going to take it forward as a committee. Does that sound like a plan? Okay, thanks for that. We're going to move on to the work programme now. So, if you wanted to take your leave, then you are quite. Okay. Right. Okay. So we're moving on now to.
So, Chairman, I think we'll record in relation to that last item that members of the committee have got the opportunity to submit questions, issues, areas for prioritisation. We will then feed back to the committee what those areas are, and in the meantime, proceed with trying to find a date for a visit to Clacton Police Station. We've also mentioned a visit to Thorpe-le-Soken.
Yep.
And as you've just said, Windyburn was offering the opportunity as well to spend some time with the domestic violence team locally. So there's already a range of areas that the committee can start to develop that understanding and start to develop areas for further scrutiny going forward over the remainder of this year. So I think we'll encapsulate that in the decision on that item.
Yeah. Okay.
And item 5, I think, Chairman, is the work programme. This is your standard report. It obviously gives an opportunity to also enable an update on where we are with the transport task and finish group and the education task and finish group. If the respective chairman of those task and finish groups want to use that opportunity, we are progressing with the work programme. Your next meeting will also be looking at financial matters around partnerships and grant giving by the authority. At page 23, you've got proposed decisions and whether there's anything there that you feel needs to be incorporated in your work programme. Remembering again that your work programme is already fairly well packed with items, but if there is anything in those proposed decisions which causes you to think, well, I'd like to see an off-agenda briefing perhaps, and that might then prompt you, once you've read that, to consider whether you want a further adjustment to your work programme. But they're there, and it also includes the update on the response from the Cabinet meeting in relation to the matters that have previously been referenced to that committee, and that's on page 21 of the agenda. So if you turn to that, that's your recommendations monitoring. It was on children missing from education, and the response is there back from Cabinet back in July, so if there's anything further under that you want to raise. But your work programme's there, you're well into it, and as I say, whether there's anything from the two chairmen of the task and finish groups that you want to say.
Yeah, I'll just take on the transport. So we've had one meeting with the community transport, and we've got another meeting, or task of finishing next Monday with the Essex County Council, and then we'll be looking to then moving on to inviting Headinghams, you know, and the actual transport providers in to actually take us through what their plans are. And I think maybe we'll send a briefing note out regarding different people or different members to do a bit of homework in their own wards, in as much that, you know, what are the problems with transport. And you know, we had a meeting today, and already I've spoken to a couple of people, and they've brought up things, you know, like services not turning up, being cancelled, which then causes problems for people who are children who are going into higher education, suddenly being left because the services are being stopped. So we will be taking that up with Headingham as well. So yeah, I think we've made quite good progress on that. Terry, I didn't know whether you want to just update us on the education.
So education task and finish group, this is our position. We've met once so far. We have agreed our two main focus areas. One area is attendance and absenteeism in schools, secondary schools, and the second area is the mental health provision that is provided. We have agreed our list of focus questions for both of those areas. We meet again on December the 11th, where we've got some representatives from Essex County Council and our primary school hub that's going to give us some updates in those areas. And we have written to 5 secondary schools asking their permission for a counsellor or 2 to come in and present these questions in these 2 areas. I'm pleased to say that I've already heard back from 2 of those secondary schools that are delighted that we're interested and are only too keen to welcome us into the school. So that's where we are, and we'll move that on December the 11th.
That's really positive. Well done on that. Putting you on the spot a bit, do you, obviously you're a school teacher in Suffolk, so are you already seeing differences between Suffolk and Essex, and Tendring in particular?
Yeah, you're welcome to put me on the spot. I honestly, not yet, no, because I'm not. I could talk to you for an hour on Suffolk, the situation in Suffolk, but as yet, Essex is still. I'm still getting results from Tendring, so I wouldn't like to make a comment at this point, but it will come, I'm sure.
Engaging with members, and I don't know how people feel about it. Councillor Turner, for instance, has put in 2 questions, two different subjects, shoplifting, and also fire tenders in his ward. So I don't know whether we should, and obviously that, and then we've had Chris, you put a question, and Linda put a question in. I don't know whether we should encourage other members to make them aware that although they might not attend the council meeting, but they can actually put questions in. Does that make sense?
I think it does, Chairman, and I think you've already mentioned it in relation to the transport inquiry, is perhaps going out to all councillors and asking them for their feedback. Certainly in the other Overview and Scrutiny Committee Resources and Services, they were looking at planning enforcement and did exactly the same and got feedback from a number of councillors. So the opportunity is there, and we should use it when it can assist that inquiry.
And then just, sorry, Christian.
Are we looking to address this in the corporate plan? I mean, speaking as somebody who has a ward where both the air show, the car rally, and virtually every other event takes place, I think it would be good if we did have some sort of corporate policy there, because at the moment it seems to be a little bit hit and miss. And I know that earlier in the year, when there was some issues with what was happening on Frinton, we didn't seem to have a coherent policy that was stretching across the district. So I think it would be good in regards to the policy on events on council land if we had a view for the emerging corporate plan. And the other two things that are coming up on Cabinet are the North East Essex Economic Board strategy and delivery and Freeport East, both which are updates. Would it not be a good idea, given the value to the district, if this committee looked at both of those, purely because the amount of as part of the levelling up agenda and also prosperity for the district, both of these are vital for our success over the coming years. Yeah, you've got a Freeport update which is coming on the 15th of the 12th, which I know is ongoing, and also the North East Essex Strategic Delivery Plan Board, which I know that we did, which are both coming up in December. But as both of these are quite vital to the future of the district and its prosperity, I think it would be good if we as a committee looked at that.
Is that us or is that the resources and services?
On the basis of what's on page 23, they would fit within this committee's remit currently. I think it is exactly one of those. Freeport East is in part resources and services and part community leadership. May I suggest that as they're coming up, you have the opportunity of reading those. We can draw members of this committee's attention to them once they hit Cabinet. You will then be able to determine whether that's something that you want further updates on, further opportunities to inquire, or whether you're happy with what is submitted to the Cabinet. That gives you the opportunity. You will have that written material in front of you at that stage.
Potentially these could be £1 million projects. So I think that we do as a committee need to actually look at both of those. I mean, if you look at the potential that Freeport East could have on employment alone, that has to be something that as a committee we should have an interest in from a jobs and prosperity point of view. And I should imagine that if you're around the Harwich area, that should be of vital importance potentially, because that could bring a whole range of employment, job opportunities, etc. And the North East Essex Economic Delivery Plan, I think, is a vital document which is not just important for us, but probably for the whole of East Anglia. And I do think that as a committee, we really should be looking at that, because that is a key proposal for this council.
You say it's coming out in...
Yes, Chairman, it's going to Cabinet, as page 23 says, it's going to Cabinet. You'll be able to look at that and then determine what out of that you subsequently want to inquire into that isn't already in the public domain by virtue of that. And I'm not discounting what you're saying, Chris, but at the moment we've just got two titles on a piece of paper. When the detail comes out, you will be able to say, what further do we need to know that isn't already in there, and perhaps also what the exposure of the council will be financially. Whether that then becomes a resources and services overview and scrutiny matter, I think we can then look at once we've got that. There is likely to be, either by virtue of your meeting on, I think it's the 11th of January, the opportunity for us to have that in front of you to say, having read that material, what further do you as a committee want to approve? Or otherwise, do you just want to keep a watching eye over it and then think about it for 2024-25's work programme? Because at the moment you're just looking at this year's work programme, which I only say again is pretty busy. And there is only a limited capacity of members of this. You will have all member briefings, which will touch on these things, will give opportunity for questioning. They are absolutely, Chris, big schemes. Whether you've got time at this point, and having read the material that goes in front of Cabinet, you feel it's a now issue rather than a potential issue for 24-25, I would suggest is best looked at once you've got that material.
Yeah, and also, is there an opportunity then? I know we have spoken about doing a joint task and finish, so we could we do a joint task and finish over the two scrutiny committees?
The opportunity exists for you to do a joint scrutiny. Clearly, a joint scrutiny requires both parties to want to come to the event. You would need to. We would need to have to raise that with resources and services. Chris, I'm sure, will be able to do that.
Let's wait until it comes through then, and then we've got all the information, and then over, excuse me, the December-January period, we can have the discussion to see if we can do a joint session on that. Okay, is everybody okay with that then? Just to, yep. Item 7 is the corporate plan, pages 55 to 68, our vision. So again, sorry. Yeah. No.
Chairman, just to introduce it by virtue of the fact this is it's coming before you, albeit that the corporate plan consultation has now ended, and Cabinet on Friday of last week actually approved a version of the corporate plan to be submitted to full council. That will happen on the 28th of this month, so fairly soon, probably Monday of next week, you will receive, certainly electronically, a copy of the agenda for full council with that wording set out. Hot on the heels of that, it's the intention of Cabinet to have at its December meeting, it's almost distilled the version of what will be its highlight priorities for 24-25. So corporate plan 4 years, and then coming up with tangible actions to deliver against that corporate plan in the first real year of that, 24-25, will be coming in front of Cabinet in December. So this is primarily an information report, albeit that you, along with the other 48 members of the council, will determine the corporate plan later this month. And then, as I say, also Cabinet will be seeking to adopt its action plan effectively for how it's going to start delivering against that. And that will be coming out for consultation. I would suggest that that would be something you particularly wanted to see at your 11th of January meeting when you're looking at the budget, to consider that prioritisation against the budget insofar as it relates to this committee, which is partial because most of the budget issues are dealt with through the Resources and Services Committee, but certainly in relation to working with partners and therefore any grant giving, any funding that the council has received from the likes of health bodies to deliver improvements in quality of life would be coming before you on the 11th of January.
Yeah, so in January then, our January meeting, can we plan in, obviously we can pick out on the corporate plan and also on the priorities. We can then focus in on what comes under us. So then we can move on with that. Because bearing in mind that we will be doing some financial scrutiny, which is basically on the grants which we give out as a council to community groups, if you like. And I think there's a piece of work going on with that at the moment, I think, isn't there?
There is, Chairman, and obviously with the consent of the committee, subject to anything that Cabinet may approve, you may be looking at that grant giving and the overlap that may or may not exist in any of that grant giving, and I say grant giving in the widest possible sense, to the likes of community groups, etc., locally. So there could well be a bringing together of some work that the Cabinet would like to do, and whether you want to take it on to look at that. So that'll all be coming in front of you in January.
And I think maybe once we do that in January, then I think maybe some of the things what you raised, Chris, will probably be answered in that, because then we will have a clearer path forward, and hopefully then we can really put in some strong recommendations and statements to Cabinet and hopefully to full council as well. So we're getting to the end of tonight's meeting. Is there any questions anybody want, or any comments you want to make? Or? Okay, I'd just like to thank everybody.
Chairman, we're just on that, we will record that we will put the Cabinet's proposed 24-25 priorities in front of you, because I believe that's the wish from this evening.
Yep.
When you look at the budget issues that you'll be looking at.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, and safe journey home.